everybody, Karis here, and I am about to tell you a really long and detailed dream that I had last night. And it's up to you how you take this. Some of you guys might take it as astral traveling, which I do believe that it was. I don't believe that it was a dream. When you start becoming familiar with the different levels of lucidity within dreams, you can start to discern what is your own subconscious just bringing up things for you to look at versus what is some type of communication between you and another being, be it human or non-human, versus what is actual travel to another place, possibly on this planet, possibly not on this planet. Excuse me, my throat chakra is doing funny things, which says that there's some interesting energy going on with my throat chakra. I haven't been hoarse all day until just now, so this is fascinating. If you choose to believe that this is just something going on in my own subconscious, then that's fine. You can choose to believe that. If you believe that this is something that I'm tapping into for the collective consciousness of humanity, like Jungian type stuff, archetypal type concepts, you can believe that as well. I don't really care what it is you believe so long as you get the message, if you feel drawn to watching this video. Okay, I've done videos before about soul retrieval for an individual and also for group level soul retrieval, which one of us kind of gets it and then it goes out like a ripple through the rest of us, and that's always fun. And this is the first time recently. There was one time when I had a conscious planetary interaction in a dream, which was not at all a dream, because that time I was completely lucid the whole time. I went through the tunnel, I went to a different place, I descended into a planet, and that was neither here nor there because it's a completely different situation. But that also means that I'm not completely unfamiliar with this type of work. And just so you know, this is likely to be a very long video series, so I want to get all of it out to you, and it might take me a few videos to do this because I want to make sure they're short enough to post quickly, because when I came out of this experience, it was very important that I let all of you know what happened immediately. And this happened last night. Today is January the 4th. February the 4th. It's Tuesday. And I had this dream this morning at about probably between 4 and 6:30 a.m. Okay. It began with my consciousness kind of floating. Now, I cannot say for sure what happened before that. I can't say whether or not I felt like I was in corporal form somewhere, which is in bodily, physical form somewhere, or if I just kind of started off as a cloud of consciousness. I might have been physical and then someone bringing me into this awareness, and it felt like then I became a cloud of consciousness. I don't know. For my conscious awareness of it, it began and I was a cloud of consciousness, and someone was telling me this is not necessarily auditory, it's more clairsentient, telepathic type of communication, and it was kind of a once upon a time situation, which got me to focus on this dimension, on this particular planet, which was not Earth, but it was a very similar type of planetary consciousness, although it felt a lot newer and younger than Gaia's consciousness does. So it was essentially once upon a time there was a planet where people, animals, I didn't really see any animals in the dream, but I know they were on the planet, and androids lived in unaware slavery. And so there were androids on the planet. They were sentient, kinda, like AI, artificial intelligence, but the way that this planet went, it was very cheap to create artificial intelligence because the people on this planet had been engineered. But I'll get back to that. I wrote this in my journal, and there are like 5 pages of tiny handwriting. You can see my handwriting is really small. And it took me probably several minutes to write all this down, and it's really important, like I said, that I get all of it to you. So, alright, on this planet where people, animals, and androids live in unaware slavery, and it was slavery of the mind. So they did not know they were enslaved. It was very much objective, this is the way things are type of situation where no one even thought to question anything. They didn't know they had the opportunity. They didn't know they had the choice to choose. Okay, so on this planet, there was an area, which is the first place my consciousness went, as kind of a cloud of consciousness. I did not have a body. I didn't feel things like the air against my skin, which was non-existent. It was just kind of a cloud of observation, kind of like when you're doing a map search on the internet and you zoom into a specific place on the planet and it zooms you in to the area that you put in the coordinates for. So, on the edges of the cities in this planet, there were fields that went out to the horizon that were made of varying platform heights of metal. And this metal was strips of square rods, so bars, making up platforms. And the platforms were of varying size. And I'm not sure if they were rooftops or if they were on the ground, but I do know that they were kind of on the edge of the cities. So it could have been that the cities were inside buildings, and that's why these platforms were the edge. But I do know that most people spent most of their time indoors. So for you to be under sky already, the consciousness of people who were attracted to this type of situation was already a little bit different than the ones who never came to the edges of the cities. And it was kind of a factory type setting. And these slatted metal platforms were where people would walk around, and if they were outside when night fell, they would go to sleep on the platforms. Now, also in this society, there was a belief that there was a war going on, and I actually think, and I thought in the dream, because as I'm understanding more of what's going on through observation, I'm also getting the clairsentient type of just full understandings of what's going on. And I don't think the war was real at all. I think the war was imaginary. But the way that I found this out was one night as I was observing a girl. So she was a girl / woman, probably around 20 years old, give or take. She had blonde hair. She was human. And her pet android. And this being was kind of artificially intelligent, but he didn't really feel emotion. He was very tall, made of metal. And like I said, android intelligence here was very cheap. So she was of the lower class. She was poor. And they were hanging out together in the metal slot platform planes of this city, on the edges of the city. And if you happened to be up there when you went to sleep, you just went to sleep on the platform. So one night, as I'm observing what's going on, and there are lots of people up there. There was even a couple getting married up there. I remember seeing all this happen, and kind of in the background, there's a woman with a wedding dress. So there's stuff going on. This is a society that's moving. This is not something that was just created for my observation. This is me observing something that is already in existence. So one night, as they're sleeping up there, because they just happened to fall asleep up there was a silent shifting to the landscape. And what happened was, on each of these platforms, the corners of them very silently started to rise, and these rods came up out of the corners. And once they got to a certain height, they expanded, and it became a cage. And then the cages began to move. And I realized in that moment that this war was not real. The war was what was said, so first, everyone would be living in fear. And secondly, because every now and then people on the edges of the cities would just disappear. These people on these planes would just disappear. But according to the meme of the war, if you had a loved one that just disappeared, you would believe that they would have been attacked by some type of raid as a result of the war. And you did not realize that it was the powers that be taking people away. So, what happened is these cages were constructed and the people started to get taken. And at this point, I'm very much closely around this girl and her android pet companion. And where they were taken was to a long, huge hallway. And that is where I'll end this first video, because I want to get into what happened in the hallway, but this video is getting long, so I'm going to end it. This is it for part 1, and I'll see you guys again immediately right now for part 2.